Welcome to this session of Groundbreakers Live. I'm your host Javed Mohammed here at Oracle OpenWorld Asia as well as Oracle Code Singapore 2019. And I have as my guest today Mark Rakhmilevich, can I get that right? Who is the Director for Blockchain at Oracle.
Thanks, Javed. Good to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Sure.
Director for Blockchain Product Management. You're based out of headquarters?
Yes, I'm based in the headquarters in the Bay Area.
In the Bay Area. Okay, cool. First time in Singapore?
No, actually, I've been here a few times before. We have some good customer projects here. And we've done some training for the Asia Pacific region and work on a few customer pilots.
What are your impressions of Singapore compared to the Bay Area?
Well, I mean, I love the area. I love Singapore. It's a great city. Great people, outstanding food. You know, coming from Bay Area, it's not easy to find interesting food places, but Singapore certainly hits it out of the park with all of the combinations here. And yeah, just a great place to be.
All right. So we were talking a little bit off camera. You've got a couple of presentations. We thought perhaps from a developer standpoint, it would be more interesting to talk about your first one, which is approaches to governance. You want to kind of give us just like a 30,000-foot view of what that's about?
Yeah, it's a session on approaches to governance and access control in consortium blockchains. When you think about it, it's a blockchain application is a significant mind shift from what enterprise developers typically work on, in a sense that it's no longer your application within your organizations that you control and you manage a life cycle and so on. Rather, it's an application that is running across multiple nodes belonging to different companies all working together. So it's data sharing and application code sharing as well.
So it's very distributed.
It's very distributed technically. You have to make sure that when it executes in different nodes, the smart contracts execute in exactly the same way. Idempotency is very key to ensure they return the same results. Otherwise, transaction cannot succeed and cannot be committed to the blockchain. There's a consensus mechanism that depends on the same results of the execution being achieved. But beyond sort of the distributed nature and the technology involved, the technical skills involved in building that, you also need to think about how you're going to manage confidentiality and privacy, because on one hand, you're sharing a lot of data with participants in the blockchain. Even in a permissioned blockchain, it's a closed ecosystem of companies that join and are managed. But at the same time, you want to make sure you still adhere to business confidentiality requirements when you work, for example, on, let's say, supply chain environment, and you moving a purchase order through the blockchain. Only the participants who really participate in that transaction need to see all of the details. You don't want to share all of the purchase order details with everybody on the blockchain. So how do you do that? There is a number of mechanisms currently available in Oracle blockchain platform based on Hyperledger Fabric, but we're finding customers need more. So we're working on fine-grained access control managed on chain, where you can define essentially authorizations or ACLs, access control lists, directly on chain, and provide libraries for chain code or smart contracts to be able to access them. The other big area is how do you actually onboard new members to the ecosystem, manage the life cycle of the development and deploying of the chain code. You need agreement from multiple members, and today they're typically done off-chain. People get on the phones, they talk, they decide, okay, we're going to accept this new member. But that creates a significant administrative burden if you scale the network up. So we are coming up with some mechanisms and solutions for on-chain governance, which will allow a more automated set of policies, vote-based, where somebody can propose adding a new member as a transaction. Events are generated to solicit votes from voting members. The votes are tabulated using smart contract. The policy is verified when sufficient number of votes has been reached based on the policy requirements. Then automatic action can take place. It can be triggered to add a new member or create a new channel or deploy the chain code or smart contract, upgrade a new version of it. All of that involves sort of a democratic, decentralized process that requires agreement from multiple members. And so we're trying to automate that using voting mechanisms and policies to make it auditable and ensure we have full track of that available on chain.
Okay. So while you were talking, I was just trying to think, you know, most of us who are not, I mean, I think we all know that blockchain is a cool technology. Most people know it from the public standpoint of Bitcoin and things like that, but obviously we're talking about more of in the private space. Are you finding some kind of like early, what are kind of the use cases that you're finding people are kind of going after in terms of implementing
in enterprise blockchain?
Yes.
Yeah, we had a great panel this morning that Esmond Tong put together, with 4 participants, great use cases. 2 are in logistics and maritime shipping. There is a lot of documentation being exchanged when you are shipping goods, 20 to 30 documents per shipment, multiple versions and iterations and updates, and everybody who is involved in the shipment, freight forwarders, carriers, customs, etc., have to see all of that and be able to sign off on the documentation. So that's a great use case. And we had CargoSmart, which is a founder of, one of the early founders of a maritime shipping consortium. And then we have APL Logistics, which is one of the members that's participating. They are sharing data associated with shipments as well as electronic invoices between carriers and freight forwarders, providing full transparency and real-time updates. They're able to see the information in real time that normally would take weeks or months to get. We also had on that panel SyncPools, which is the government-run authority in Singapore for betting, lottery, sports betting, and so on. They have a number of interesting use cases they've been piloting on our blockchain platform. They have situations, for example, where people want to know if their payment or funds transfer from the bank is taking place when they buy certain tickets, or when they want to get the money back. Sometimes they forget to go in with the ticket, so there is now electronic ticketing that SyncPools will be providing. You get a message, you can go on a blockchain-based application and transfer the winnings back to your bank account.
Wow.
There is Standard Chartered Bank that was talking about securitization and using tokens for asset securitization for the securities customers and providing trading using fractional assets on the blockchain.
So it's interesting, in terms of the use cases you're talking about, the first one I can relate to very well, because Singapore is it's probably one of the largest ports.
That's right.
Probably not in Asia, if not in the world.
Yeah.
The second one I'm surprised about lottery and betting. So it's interesting that how diverse the different examples are of
very much
adoption.
so. Yeah, we have seen a number of customer use cases and initiatives across financial services, anything from loyalty programs to funds transfers, remittances, cross-border payments, financing of supply chain receivables, and trade finance type things. We've seen a lot in distribution, manufacturing, supply chain, tracking provenance of goods. We have a number of customers at this point that are in production on Oracle blockchain platform. I think there's about 6 networks running currently on our service. Anything from food provenance. There is actually a poster of the very first one with a tall guy standing in the middle of those olive fields, olive trees. That's one of our early production customers, Andrea Begatti. He's a CIO of Certified Origins. They basically do extra virgin olive oil from Italy. They purchase from over 1,500 farmers who deliver olives. They have 400 pressing plants, and then bottling, and then full distribution network, which is global. So ability to track is very important. In fact, there is somebody over there with a bottle of Bellucci brand olive oil, and on the bottle there is a tag with a tracking code. It allows somebody to enter the tracking code on the website and get the full history of that particular olive that went into that bottle. We have people who are doing conflict minerals tracing. You know, if anybody has a phone, any phone, you have capacitors in here that include tantalum. Tantalum is a mineral, conflict mineral, mined from Africa. Some of it comes from Congo, some of it comes from Rwanda. In Congo, there is a lot of conflict, and there are rebels who are using tantalum mines for nefarious purposes. Rwanda mines...
Reminds me a little about, I think there was a movie about conflict diamonds.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
very similar. So this is conflict minerals around tantalum. So Rwandan mines are now tracking their production on blockchain to ensure they can certify the ethical sourcing. It goes to the refineries in Europe who smelt the ore into thin film, goes to component manufacturers who produce capacitors, and ultimately to folks who make the phones to put into their phones or laptops. So there is an entire deep supply chain, and everybody in that supply chain, no matter how far up you are, has to ensure the ethical sourcing of raw materials going back to those mines. They have full visibility to track that.
So it's very, what you're talking about, I mean, it has a very far-reaching thing, and I'm thinking a little bit about Oracle's place in this one, because we're not a consumer-facing company. So if you kind of like fast forward to, I mean, these are all great examples. So if you kind of project out the next 5, 10, 15 years with adoption, like, does that just mean that we will live in a more socially conscious, more secure, Well, I mean, are these the kind of things that blockchain will enable?
Absolutely. I think the biggest issues that people are facing as we come to more digitalized economy and to more global economy is a question of trust. You're no longer buying most of your goods from somebody next door, the same town, or the same country. And so trust becomes really important commodity to verify. Blockchain enables that in a way that's immutable. You have data that's coming into a shared auditable ledgers, distributed ledgers that are digitally signed for non-repudiation, they're stored in an immutable fashion. And that becomes a great enabler of bringing trust back to many of the things, whether it's conflict minerals, whether it's minerals that are going into electric car batteries, like cobalt, food products like olive oil. We have an example here, right here next to me, blockchain honey. Tracking the provenance of honey from the farmers in UK to the full distribution chain. People really want to see where their products come from. We recently completed a pilot in India for anti-counterfeit pharmaceutical tracking. There is a big problem with counterfeit drugs, not only in India but around the world, but India has a particularly acute problem. And they are very motivated to ensure they can introduce blockchain-based tracking from manufacturer through all of the supply chain participants, including IoT data, for example, vaccines and drugs that need to be maintained at certain cold temperatures. So a lot of data that we are getting today from databases, I think we're going to see more and more people in regulated industries leveraging blockchain to ensure the data they collect is valid, that it comes in real time from all of the participants, and that ultimately they have full accountability, and ultimately consumers benefit as well as businesses in the end of the process.
Mark, it's a fascinating subject. I know we could probably talk on and on.
Absolutely.
But time is limited. Thank you so much for coming down. And we encourage if any of the folks who are actually here, or but probably the sessions are live streamed also, to check out Mark's sessions.
Sure. I actually just recently published a blog post on Oracle Blockchain blog. Just Google Oracle Blockchain blog, and you'll see a story there about all of the different customers who are right now using our blockchain in production to track the provenance in regulated industries.
Mark, thank you so much for coming
and for
sharing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.